Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard from Senior Living Smart, and today I am chatting with John Gonzales, and he is the Senior Vice President of Consulting and Managed Services for Haven Senior Investments. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to chat with you today. For folks that may not be familiar with you, maybe you can share with us a little bit about your background in the industry and your passion. And I know your passion is very much aligned with things that are going on in the industry today. So we'd love to learn a little bit more about you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be talking with you today. And I think what you guys do is phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I wrote some notes down last night about some of your blog posts that I remembered reading, went back and they're so timely today. But to answer your question, yeah, I've been in this business for 34 years. So I started when I was 2, which makes me 36 if you're doing math. But I started off waiting tables in an independent living community in Texas, went into dining room management, kitchen management, eventually into marketing and sales. I was a VP of marketing and sales for a number of years before getting into COO position for about 12 years, started my own company for 6 and have recently joined with Haven Senior Investments. And it's just been a terrific ride. I fell into the industry accidentally. I was fired from waiting tables at a restaurant, and I wasn't a good waiter. But I was looking for something. There was an ad in the paper for a dining room services person for a retirement community, and this is before the term assisted living had even been coined. So I took the position and just wound up growing up with the industry. At some point early on in my walk with senior housing, the light went off. My grandmother passed from Alzheimer's disease almost 38 years ago. And so we saw that decline firsthand, the impact on our family. At that point, there was nowhere else to put her except for a state-run nursing home. That's all my family could find and afford. And I hated going there. I hated to go visit grandma, and it was embarrassing, and I felt shamed. But the sights, the smells, the sounds, they were and seeing grandma with no quality of life in a time when she should be still thriving and learning and growing and dancing and painting and these things, which she had the capability of doing, but there was just no option. So I knew there was a better way. And so through the industry, I feel like I've been able to have some impact on the growth, the progression, and now beautiful communities that people have the option of moving into.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I feel like we all have those kind of personal stories that connect us to the industry. So today, I know we wanted to really schedule this time together to focus on really quite a crisis that we're undergoing. It used to be, everyone would call us to say, can you get me more leads? We need more prospects in the pipeline. And I would say today we're getting as many calls for people who are turning to marketing to look for, I need to fill my pipeline of applicants, and the same strategies that you're employing to help us, attract, nurture, and advance prospects through their decision cycle, would they work on the staffing side, and how can we employ those similar channels more creatively? Because the job fairs and the things that we've always done in the past just really aren't enough. So I know that that's really a passion project for you as well, kind of coaching and developing people and leadership development. So I'd love to know kind of I think we were talking just before we hit play on the record for this podcast that McKnight's Today just published an article that 71% of assisted living providers are very concerned that workforce issues may put them out of business. 71%, I almost fell out of my chair about that. So, and I know that's something that you've been, on LinkedIn, certainly posting about and really speaking about. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts about where we are, what you're seeing, what are some of the strategies that might be working. So let's start with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a critical time in our industry right now, and the communities that have learned to pivot to this new environment quickly are the ones that are doing well, or certainly better than a lot of others. The industry as a whole took a 10% drop in occupancy across the senior living spectrum, and is only now starting to level out and start to pick up a little bit. Now, that's on average. There are some communities that did really well, in spite of the pandemic. I was fortunate enough to work with a community in Pensacola, Florida, memory care building. And in the middle of the pandemic, they enlisted me to assist them with the declining occupancy. They had dropped to about 70%. And over the span of about 90 days, we were able to fill the building back up and create a waiting list because we pivoted quickly. And part of the pivoting is the messaging. So they had been very hospitality oriented and, hey, we're the country club of choice in the area, but you can also get services here. Interesting thing is they had such a strong background in clinical expertise that they weren't showcasing. And in the middle of the pandemic, that message was what was resonating with adult children, finding a safe place for moms. So we pivoted messaging. We focused, like you guys do, on a lot of digital advertising, on your presence in social media, what that message is that runs across those platforms. Is it cohesive? Online reviews, and really put the message out there, including things like virtual touring, because people weren't coming in. So simple things like, do we have a stabilizer for your smartphone when you're walking around the community? Because otherwise it feels like the Blair Witch Project, because you're getting bounced around on a tour. So that's a great example of a community that pivoted quickly. They adjusted their messaging and they rode out the storm, and they're doing well. The interesting thing now, where we find ourselves, all of those strategies still are sound and work so well. I think marketing and sales professionals as an entity within senior housing is ahead of the curve from operations, in that you guys have been in this world for a long time. You saw the wave coming, and those companies that were aware and looking forward saw, hey, we've got to pivot. Maybe postcards and direct mail isn't the way to go now. Maybe we need to do a lot more things electronically and digitally. And one of the interesting things for me when we first talked was discussing how those same techniques being used by marketing and sales and having been used for a long time, maybe that is an opportunity for us to approach employees. So I think the critical thing is the platform's probably already there. The database is something we're going to have to find available employees, but the messaging is the most critical thing. I think if you have the right messaging, if you have a strong presence online, they'll find you. So, but when they do, you've got to have the right message that's going to attract these folks to come to us. And that's something I think in general, senior living has always struggled with, is the perception. Oh, I don't want to work there. I don't want to work for the old folks and blah, blah, blah. So we have a couple of issues going on. One is the perception of the younger workforce in particular, and how we adjust that message and make working in senior living sexy, make it something that's interesting. And so I did some research, and I found that this new generation of employees are really looking for purpose in their life. And that's why you see a rise of younger folks' involvement in the political arena and cultural arenas, and they're getting involved because they want that purpose. So it's incumbent upon us to create that, or not even to create it, but to show what that purpose is. and to share with these folks, that this isn't just a paycheck. This is profound. It has meaning, and it's not just the residents; it's the family members that we're also serving. And if we can articulate that and connect with that desire for purpose in their work life, I think we're going to be a lot more successful. And I think the way we get there is by utilizing much of the platforms that we've been using for marketing and sales for years.
Yeah, I agree. Have been doing some of these projects for our clients, and they're getting really creative around even doing things like setting up a Facebook group for all of their associates, and then saying invite your friends, because we have to give people an insight into how fun it is to work and the difference you're making and the interactions that you're having, and those channels that are more visual, where you can post videos and pictures, and even video testimonials and things like that are certainly compelling. Anything that you're seeing out there that you think is innovative as people are pivoting towards this new reality and this new way of attracting talent?
What's interesting is that the environment has not settled yet. So we're in the middle of the shift, right? And whether it's the pandemic, the lockdowns, the drop in occupancy, and now an intense problem with labor and staffing. So as an industry, I really feel strongly that we've got to readjust our expectations financially for our communities. We've become so successful with frontline staff that aren't really compensated well for what they do. And I was fortunate, and I know several of us, yourself probably included, to start at that ground floor and see and find a career path. A lot of these folks, they coming in and working for minimum wage when McDonald's will hire you for $17 an hour it is difficult, and you already start off flat-footed in terms of recruiting. So I think as an industry, we have to settle things down. We have to adjust our expectations. We need to be creative in how we compensate for that additional operating expense in the middle of having additional operating expenses because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of pressure going on right now. And I'm working with a couple of different groups where the minimum wage is well below what the market is paying. So we have to make that adjustment. And of course, what that does is create a wage compression situation where you have folks that are making above minimum wage, seeing new folks coming in making as much as they are. So now they are expecting some adjustments. So there's an entire very fluid situation going on, and the operators that can pivot and that can not only recruit but retain good employees are the ones that are going to weather the storm. It's interesting. I see a lot of companies, a lot of businesses paying sign-on bonuses, starting at this with a sign-on bonus to that, which is great and probably necessary, but not a lot of them are giving bonuses to great employees to retain them. So I think, again, there needs to be a mind shift that, okay, it's important to go out and get new employees, but holy smokes, we've got a building full of great employees. We need to do something for them to anchor them. I think those that have stayed in this space and worked in these communities, especially through the pandemic, those long-term grade A employees, they need that recognition, and it's incumbent upon us to give it to them. It's a difficult market out there. The other interesting thing for me is that some of the old is still new again. So the strategies for retention are still the same. You want to anchor people, you want to reward them, obviously, but how do you anchor folks into your building? And I'm a huge believer that it's through genuine relationships that create those anchors for people, whether it's with other staff, with residents, with the family members, but fostering genuine relationships between your existing staff and those folks is the real key to anchoring folks to the building. It's not going to come because $1 more an hour. It's not going to become because, we have pizza parties every Friday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come from those genuine relationships, having a best friend at the building that you work with or for. You said the Facebook page, and
Mm-hmm.
invite your friends to come and see what we do. It's a beautiful example of something that I think it's going to be effective. It is successful. You want your employees to be your best recruiters, but if they're not happy for whatever reason, that's going to be a tough road. And the distinction, it's interesting, between marketing, sales, and operations, I always see that separation as toxic. We're part and parcel of the same goal. And
Mm-hmm.
if, as a marketing or sales professional, you recognize that the operations are struggling because of the staffing issues, for instance, or the increased operating expenses, the belief in the product is going to wane. You're going to have difficulty conveying that passion and belief about your building if you know that there are issues operationally with the building. So I've always believed that they need operations, whether it's the executive director, the department heads, have to work in support of marketing and sales, just as marketing and sales needs to work in support of operations. We're all the same team. I always tell people that we all do the same thing. Doesn't matter what your title is. We serve residents. We serve this generation. And I think we've got to work on that kind of cohesion, not only at the industry level, but right down in the individual communities. I've seen a lot of those communities where that separation exists. Oh, marketing and sales, they get to go have lunch. They get to go out tootling around the community. And there's this separation. They don't feel a part of what he or she is doing out in the community. So I think breaching that and creating a link where they feel a part of the marketing and sales team. Every staff member should be a marketer. Every one of them, a marketing director, should be comfortable introducing them to a prospect on a tour. They should be equipped with those skills. And sales, I find this very common, isn't just about money, right? It's about conveying a passion and a belief that you have in something in a way that makes that other person want that. Wow, he really sounds passionate about what he's doing. I had a housekeeper when I first started managing communities who was just phenomenal and loved the residents and had genuine relationships with them. And without even realizing it, what I would do during a tour, I would make a beeline for wherever she was, and with the prospects, and I would introduce her. Maria, this is Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They're looking for a place for their mom. Why don't you tell them what you do here? And Maria would just go off and say, oh my gosh, I lost my grandparents 6 years ago, but now I feel like I have 80 sets of grandparents because I have so much in common with Mrs. So-and-so, and we're trade recipes with Mrs. So-and-so. And I just feel like we're all family, and I just love working here. And I have to tell you the story about Mr. Phillips and his birthday and blah, blah. And she just would go on, and I would just let her talk. She would finish and say, I'm sorry, I need to go now, or say, thank you very much, Maria. She would leave. And I remember thinking, I just need to turn around now and say, should we go sign the lease now? Because, and I can't tell you how many folks said, can Maria be my mom's housekeeper? And isn't that interesting? A frontline staff member that was able to convey that belief and that passion in what she did and convey those genuine relationships was probably my best salesperson. And that should be true for every community. You should have those people within your community that are your best salespeople.
Yeah. So finding more of those Marias, I think the industry really, if we take a kind of a chapter from the hierarchy of needs, concept, up to from, the very basic needs that people have or our team members have, up to self-actualization, and really looking at all of those steps. I think that the industry has been stuck on stage number one, which is just survival. And so, that was really like, I give them a paycheck. but we haven't worked our way up to belonging and feeling like you're part of something bigger and having an opportunity to grow and contribute, and then finally getting to that self-actualization of that sense of purposefulness. There have been enough workers that we were able just to stay on step number 1 of the hierarchy of needs, which is just, food, water, bed, sleep, shelter, all of that stuff. And we thought, maybe that was enough. And yeah, we can throw the pizza party, and then we'll have the December, associate gathering and hand out, some resident bonuses or whatever that is. But now we have to be just so much more creative because people are looking for more. As we take a look at, as we're interviewing, we start off with understanding who is your ideal caregiver. So if we're hiring for caregivers and we're doing a marketing campaign to attract and create a pipeline of opportunity for caregivers, the best ones are probably working. They're not the ones that are unemployed. They're not the ones who can start tomorrow. And so what we will do is we will interview their favorite workers, all the Marias that work in their communities. And we ask them, how did you find this company? Why did you choose them? What attracted you? Why do you stay? What are the things that make it a great place to work? And we're hearing, things like, like training. Like people are really, they want to grow. They want to have an opportunity. So there are certain things, like if you start with creating a persona by interviewing the folks that are doing a great job and have been with you for a long time and have been so successful, then it's about how do we go find more people like Maria, not just a warm body that's available that we can throw in tomorrow. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your thoughts around we do have short-term needs. We do have open positions. We have a client who says, I have 300 open positions today. Okay. That's scary. And so we have to have short-term solutions. But then we can't just stay in this firefight of, you're going to have 300 next month too, if you're not focusing on training, development, orientation, onboarding, having that sense of family and giving people opportunities. So, we're trying to work the two paths together. Yes, we can do things that are short term, but just as important is how do we create a pipeline and how do we start attracting people who aren't looking for a job, who probably are the best long-term employees, and how do we start that? So I'd love for you to share kind of your thoughts around those two tracks.
Sure, absolutely. So you touch on a couple of really great points. The idea and the approach of value add for existing employees. And I think when we talk about the scenario where someone has 300 available positions, it's like you said, it's frightening. And how do you deal with that? Because even if you fill those slots, you may have 300 next month. The way, what I would say is first, do no harm. You have to anchor existing good employees first. The cost of turnover is astronomical. And folks say, oh, we can't afford to give everyone a bonus, or we can't afford to give everyone a $2 an hour increase. But if you measure the cost of the turnover, it's exponentially higher than those costs. Right. So you got to start there with anchoring your great employees. And another way, it's not just money. Like you said, there's training and development. You have to bring that to the table. There's value add features. Can we partner with a daycare or bring daycare into the building? Is there an opportunity to create a program where, gosh, Donna worked a double shift and she's going back home to her family now, but we want to give her dinner and dinner for her family, and those kinds of things that really make help the employees to feel more like a family, that, hey, they care about what's going on in my world. Not just getting that shift covered, right? So one of the value adds I love, and I think it's so applicable not only in the workplace but also to personal lives, is training folks on emotional intelligence. Not only does it help create those relationships that we were talking about at the workplace. But that's a skill that when applied to your personal life is so valuable. And it's funny, I was teaching doing a training session a number of years ago. There were probably 80 or 90 nurses in this room, and I have no clinical experience, so I'm very intimidated. And I go up to do my little spiel, and I asked, how many of you have ever had training on emotional intelligence? And out of that group, 4 people, I counted 4 hands. And I said, okay, how many of you have ever encountered emotion in your daily job? And of course, every hand goes up. Our staff are dealing with grief and depression. They're dealing with all of the baggage that comes along from mom aging, maybe having cognitive impairment, certainly being frail, and our residents that are going through traumatic, many of them traumatic situations, loss of a spouse, serious decline in health. And, sometimes here's a good example. The daughter comes in, is furious that mom missed lunch, because that's what mom said, whether or not it's true, and starts berating someone, one of the employees. Maybe it's a dining room staff member, a caregiver, an executive director. And that, when someone's coming at you like that, and there's not, I'm guessing, not a single person in our business that doesn't understand this situation. They're upset, they're angry, maybe they're acting on correct information, maybe not, but you're the recipient of that emotion. So understanding where that attack is coming from, and understanding your natural response to it, and just pausing and thinking about that, and then adjusting your response based on the skills that we're able to impart to the employees, is magnificent. And it does help in the workplace. But I started teaching this a number of years ago, and I remember thinking, I'm going to start doing this at home. And because, what family doesn't have these arguments from time to time, whether it's with your kids or your spouse, so I started to do it, and it really changed the dynamic in our home. And one quick example, I had an awful day at work. I was driving home in rush hour traffic. My AC stopped working. It was middle of summer, and I had skipped lunch because I had to work through it, and got home, recognized that I hadn't mowed the grass yet, and I'm getting ready to jump on a plane at 5 a.m. And so I'm going to come back 10 days later, and it's going to be awful. So my hand hits the doorknob, and I'm thinking right away, how is this interaction going to go with my family? My small son's going to run up to me and want to play. My wife, I actually did. This is true. I walked in, and she hadn't had time to make dinner because she was busy reorganizing the pantry. And my initial emotional reaction is, wow, come on, guys, let's get going. No dinner. Now I have to go pick up my dry cleaning before I can't play right now, Andrew. That's how I wanted to come across. But when my hand hit the doorknob, I stopped and thought about this. And I walked in, and I thought, instead of sucking those folks, my family, into my life, into my story today, I want to be in their story. And I started to practice this, that I would walk in not feeling like a good dad, not feeling like I'm just angry and frustrated. And when my boy came up to me, I said, you know what, Dad's got to go on a trip tomorrow, but why don't you come upstairs? You can pick all my ties and socks out for me, and we'll just play basketball, shoot him into the suitcase. And so I started to act that way. Hey, no problem. Dinner's not ready. Let's order pizza. We haven't had pizza in a while. And I started to just act that way. What I noticed is the more I acted that way, the more I felt that way. And I think if you can teach that to employees, I think it's a life skill, right? And there's so many opportunities to impart those life skills to the employees, and those value adds, smoking cessation programs, and weight loss programs, or cholesterol lowering programs. There's so many things that we can do, and we have to be creative in order to retain those good employees. And I think by doing that, you do create a bit of a pipeline, because others want to be a part of that.
No, I agree. I really love the idea of starting off by anchoring the employees that you have. And then from that, you can really elicit referrals and testimonials, and there's so many good things that can attract other good people, because people want to work with good people. They want to work with people who are going to show up and be good teammates. And some of the things that we've seen around anchoring, which I think is really interesting, is one of our clients, they're designing new buildings. You know how usually the staff break room is like in the basement with no windows, or is by the loading dock. I mean, it's not a desirable place that says, we love you, we care about you, you're special. It's like, here's the leftover non-revenue generating space that we could give you. So they're actually, in their new buildings, they're putting the employee lounge right upstairs, right in front, all windows, charging stations, all kinds of, fun things. When they take a break, it's comfortable, it's bright, it's respectful. You want to kind of hang out there, and there's, full showers, because some people work double shifts. And then they're also telling all the employees, look, all of the amenities that are in this building, they're for you. And they're for your family. So if you want to come play pool or watch a movie, or bring your kids to swim in the pool, or take your dog on the walking paths or dog park or whatever it is, this is your home too. And they believe that, the more integrated, the residents are with the team, everybody wins in that type of environment. And I just think that's absolutely brilliant strategy, because who wouldn't want to be treated like that? And I moved my mom into a senior community a couple months ago. Her best relationships are with the staff. She knows all their stories. She knows who they're dating. She knows what they're cooking. She knows when their birthdays are. Would you pick me up a card? Am I allowed to give them a gift? She has better relationships with the staff than she does with other residents, who just kind of annoy her. So, but she loves, they remind her of her grandchildren and everything else, but she loves them. So I think integrating those relationships is really an innovation that I was so excited to hear that they were doing that.
I think that's, absolutely spot on. Exactly what we're talking about in terms of how do you create or foster those great relationships? How do you nurture them? And I think that approach is brilliant. You touched on something right before that, which is the employee break room. I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure there's a high percentage of folks that have it right next to the laundry room or the bathroom or the pipes. Right. I've seen those. I've been in those, and they're still out there. And I think, people look at these types of spaces as non-revenue producing, but what they are is revenue retention. Right. You don't want the turnover. You want to anchor your staff. You want someone to be willing to work the double shift, because they know they can take a shower, have a bath, or a shower, maybe have a nap, have a snack in the break room. Maybe there's a massage chair in there too for the sore back or the sore neck. There's so many things that we can do, but we look at this space. And again, this kind of goes back to where I started about needing to rethink as an industry what our expectations are of our buildings financially. We're looking at this space as revenue producing, and if we make it an employee break room, we lose. Well, I think we need to readjust that line of thinking. And your point about having residents and staff interact is actually spot on. One of the things I love to do is find out what the employees are interested in. What are their hobbies? A musician? Do they like to paint? Whatever that is, and have them come in and do that here. I have choir practice. Why don't you have them come over here and practice? Or why don't you, bring your guitar over and play for the residents? You love technology. How about showing the residents how to use their iPhones? Teach them some tricks, and really get them going. I remember doing that at one building and got to a place where we really didn't need more volunteers. We had staff so engaged, even to the extent where, we had one staff member would come in frequently with his son and teach the residents how to use the Wii. Something simple, but back in the day, it was kind of a frightening thing.
Yeah.
and they just would come almost every other night. They would spend a couple hours after dinner, and sometimes they would bring mom, sometimes, but they were so involved and had created those genuine relationships, doing something that they loved. They love playing the Wii on the giant screen, and
Yeah.
the son loved it. So yeah, those kinds of things are fantastic. I did that for a while. I got in trouble though when I found out one of the employees was a tattoo artist, and I brought them in, but that was frowned upon. So
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be careful.
you have to be a little careful, a little discerning. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that, that goes to the relationship between, marketing and operations. Sometimes operators are like, you got to go out and, get us, applicants. We have all these open positions, but you have to deliver an employee experience.
Exactly.
That's really up to operations. It can't be smoke and mirrors. I mean, you can't tell people come to work here because we respect you and we care about you and we're like family and we're going to treat you well. And on our first day of work, they go to a windowless break room that's just dank and dark and awful. You're not going to retain them. So
Right.
yes, marketing, can get the leads to the door and get people interested and, even convert them to, job fairs and to interviews and to, uploading applications and resumes. All of that stuff marketing can do. But if operations doesn't actually deliver it,
Right.
then you're going to find significant turnover in the first week, 30 days. And I think it's important that people track, not only turnover in general terms. We every year we turn over 50% of our folks. I've never seen a P&L statement. I've never seen anybody in a budget meeting say, hey, we have to put in here, we've got a budget for 50% turnover. We know what's going to happen, but I have never seen it as a line item in any budget meeting that I was ever in, right?
No one wants to acknowledge, that's the reality. You're right.
It's like, if we put it down here, it's going to happen. No, it's going to happen anyway. But I think you have to dig further and you have to figure out how many people quit a week after orientation. What's the turnover in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months? Because we know if we can get them past 30 days, we can probably get them to 90. And if we can get them to 90, we can get them to 6 months. If we get them to 6 months, we can get them to a year. But, really mapping that out. We did this for one of our clients. You may know Vitality Living, Chris Gay at Vitality. When he was first starting out, he had 2 communities and they were acquisitions. And so nobody knew Vitality. Everyone knows Vitality now because they're a great company and a great brand. But in his first 2 acquisitions, he was like, hey, Deb, we're going to have these 2 buildings. We're a new player. How can we build trust with the employees? Because, in an acquisition, there's a lot of nervousness. Am I going to who are these people? Are my benefits going to change? Are my insurance going to change? All of those types of things. So we actually put together, first of all, a welcome box. So we created a Vitality blend. It was beautiful. On the outside of the box, it was all branded for Vitality. And we actually shipped to their home addresses this beautiful box. It had their shirt, it had their name badge, it had, a travel mug, it had chargers, and it had a letter from Chris saying how excited he was, to have them as part of the Vitality team. And, all of a sudden we saw on Facebook, people were taking pictures of these boxes, taking pictures of their family, looking or having their shirt or putting their name badge on. So it's like, how do we create a sense of belonging before day one? Why are we waiting until, I wonder if they're going to show up for orientation. And then if they do, let's go stick them in a room with a bunch of tapes and a bunch of videos, because that's a great experience, right?
Yeah.
But if you can, beforehand have a strategy and have a, something in place where we know that as soon as you kind of sign that job offer, we're going to put this wonderful, beautiful welcome kit in the mail to you and your family, then you're establishing, great, a sense of belonging, and you can create the foundation for loyalty before they even start. And then what's their experience going to be for orientation? Are they going to get a beautiful binder where they can put their notes? Are they going to get their name badge? We even gave them each 25 business cards. The dishwashers got business cards. The waiters got business cards, because it said, I respect you. You're a professional. When you work for Vitality, you're a professional. And people never had business cards before, in those positions, only managers had them.
Right, right. It's brilliant, and it's a great recruitment and retention tool, right?
Yeah.
You're out talking with one of your friends, and oh yeah, my sister's looking for something. Well, here, why don't you call call this number? That's my card.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
and they're small things, right? They're low or no cost things that have big impact. And I think
Yeah.
that example with Vitality is perfect. You said something just a minute ago about needing to deliver. Marketing and sales can go out and drive folks to the community, but on the other side, we have to deliver, right? Operations has got to deliver. The break room has to be somewhat decent, and you have to have these things in place. And it's no different than marketing and sales going out and bringing a resident in. We've got to deliver now. Marketing and sales professionals are tasked with selling this product and this service. And the most effective folks are just passionate about what's going on in the building, and they want people to come and experience it. If we're not delivering on the back end, whether it's for a resident or an employee, turnover happens, right? And that's why I'm a huge proponent that marketing, sales, operations is integrated. It has to be thought of that way. So if there's issues with occupancy and there's more pressure there, maybe it's because of the COVID pandemic, operations had better be supportive and helping. Hey, why don't we get you a handheld camera so you can do virtual tours? Why don't we do X, Y, and Z for you? In the same way, I think marketing and sales and the tools at the disposal of our sales professionals can be used for employee recruitment. And in either case, we have to deliver.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I think those things, are really important. I think having, career ladders, because people want to grow, and outlining your training program. So, as we look at opportunities to attract, nurture, and advance people through an employment decision, which is a big life decision, it's really about employing those same channels, right? So we run paid digital ads. We run Facebook ads. We have, lead nurturing. We have marketing automation. So when someone engages and maybe downloads the benefit guide, or, creating content that people who are looking to advance their career will find valuable, how to interview well, questions to ask. Here's our career ladder. And we capture their contact information in exchange for those valuable guides and ebooks and checklists and tools. Then we can nurture them and really bring them brand awareness, and try to advance them to an interview and an uploading of an application. So it really is no different. It's just putting as much value on an employee as you do on a new resident. Because, honestly, I think providers may get to a point where they have to cap occupancy based on the number of, FTEs that they have to care for them. And that would be a very unfortunate thing to be able to say, we can't accept any more move-ins, because we can't get the staff. Right. We actually had a restaurant near us, our favorite restaurant. Like, we live in Cape Cod, which is obviously very seasonal, right? And they had a restaurant that wasn't on the water, and it was kind of more of a local place. They had to shut down for the summer because they couldn't get any staff, because the staff was all over in the summer places because they were hip hop happening, and they were literally like, we're still paying rent on this restaurant. We have all of our expenses, but we do not have enough staff to open. And, I looked at that and I said, gosh, I hope senior living doesn't get to the point where, we reach 80% occupancy. We have the leads now. We have people who now are wanting to move in. We have a pipeline of residents, but we don't have a pipeline of applicants to serve those residents. That would be a very, very bad situation.
Yeah. And, I think we need to learn the lesson of what's going on now with other industries. I think restaurants are a great example. You don't have the people, you can't provide the service, you can't have a business, right? And, you hear it all the time. I see on my news feed frequently, either hospitals are having to close and limit elective procedures again. And this time it's not due to the COVID outbreak. Now it's due to labor shortage, staffing shortages. Right. So it's hypercritical. Retention has moved to the top of the list in terms of first steps, right? So I talked to someone about, how do I recruit more people? I said, well, what's your turnover rate like? And why did they leave? And why did this person leave? And one of the interesting things that I was hearing right after the first of the year were some of the best employees that our executive directors had were leaving because of burnout. They were just exhausted. They had been the best employees working those doubles, taking care of the residents in the middle of the pandemic. And they got to the point where we could all kind of breathe a little bit, and they were just burnt, right? And they were looking for help. And the executive directors I spoke to were functioning as counselors. They were listening to the employees that were still having that anxiety about what they went through, that were just burnt out emotionally from what they had been through. And wouldn't it have been a great idea to bring in someone to offer that to the employees instead of losing them? And that's what unfortunately happened to a few of them. And, it was one of your blog posts recently talked about, is direct mail, is it still useful? Does it have purpose? And I'm sitting here talking with you thinking, what if we did a direct mail postcard to a college campus or a college dorm, and we promoted our flexible hours? Hey, make money in your free time. And the same blog indicated, I can't remember the percentage of people that actually still look at those. I do. I go out, maybe it's not every day, it's usually about every other day, and I get all the mail. And before I throw it, right, I'm looking at it. And if it's something that catches my attention, I'll set it aside. And if it's something that, wow, I could use some extra money, I have flexible time. And there's a website I can just go to and get engaged. And then once you engage them, you're off and running. So I think that I loved that blog post. I think there's still value.
There is value. And, and also, John, I don't think people understand that you can actually get lists that are very specific. So like every state retains a list of like certified nurses aides or med techs. You can purchase a mailing list of, LPNs and RNs. So you can get a pretty targeted list, to go after. And then, like you said, if it's a compelling offer, and, the pandemic has brought back QR codes in a big way. So a postcard's a great use for that. I mean, if you link that QR code to your benefits or your training program or a video of employees saying how they love working there, you can really integrate, a traditional marketing approach like a direct mail piece and turn it into a digital interaction, which I think is really so interesting. We also found one of our clients that we interviewed all of their kind of best people, and one of the questions we asked, which I think is important for everyone to ask, is where were you working before you came here? And in their situation, a significant amount came from a warehouse. We think it's probably an Amazon warehouse. They just were near kind of a big Amazon warehouse. And you think about that, people going in, it's a long day, it's physical, it's rote and repetitive. There's no purpose, there's no fulfillment. And we asked, why did you choose this? And it was because they wanted something that was more meaningful. And they also wanted to better themselves. And the training was really important. So now one of the things that we'll be doing is geofencing that warehouse or all of those warehouses. So when people come to work, they get served up an ad about, a career at this community with, this kind of training program. So I just think we have to get innovative. We have to pivot. We have to embrace, new ways of doing things. So I think marketing has a lot to offer to people who are looking to, really change the way that they look at attracting new talent. So John, if people wanted to learn more about you, they wanted to connect and hear about what you're doing, or they wanted to learn more about Haven Senior Investments, what's the best way for them to reach you and find you?
Sure. Well, if they send me their email, I'll send them out a postcard. So no,
there you go.
No, it's I'm more apt to read a junk piece of mail than I am a junk mail on my computer. I don't know why that is, but I'll see the title. I don't know that person. Delete, delete, delete. I get the postcard and go, oh, that's interesting. So anyway, Haven Senior Investments.com. And from there, they can find links to all of our different services, including how to get in contact with me. And I just love making connections in this business and hanging on to them. If we don't practice what we preach, I love retention. So
Yes.
I'm all about, I made this connection and I'm going to send an email to them and talk to them. So, but that's a great way to connect. And like I said, I'm always open for a new relationship, a new connection.
That's great. And I know you're very active on LinkedIn because I read all your posts, and you're so good at responding and kind of keeping the conversation going. Really appreciate your contribution to the industry. We'll have all your contact information in the show notes. And John, it was such a pleasure to visit with you today.
Same here, Debbie. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.